you for being here on a Saturday morning. Let me start there with manners and respect. I'm really, really honoured to be here and have this conversation with people who I deeply admire and whose work I really respect. And so this conversation, we're starting let's get straight into it, land, spatial justice and reparations. So at the heart of the ABUELOS proposition is a spatial justice proposition, right? It's about one, land back. It's about acknowledging the very property-making nature of empire and of the British Empire and how that has stolen from us, taken away our dignity, our lands, and has built wealth on the back of that. And we know that the land story is fundamentally tied to wealth, particularly what it means to be in the belly of the beast. So we're going straight in, with this. We're going straight in with this. And the work that we're trying to do is how do we take the land out of this private speculation market, right, and turn it into something that is communally stewarded over the long term for generations to come, and really grounding that in black thrivance and black dignity and all of the things that are required for that to happen. So the bigger question is practically how do we do this? And there's going to be lots of things to work out on the way. But I couldn't think of, there's a million and one people that I could easily bring into this space, but I couldn't think of a better way to ground this conversation with this dialogue. And so to be here with Pat, with Connie, and with Marcia is a massive honor. I'm going to invite each of you to introduce yourself and your work briefly. And if you could start with this kind of context of how does land, how does spatial justice, and how does reparations land with you and your work in this moment?
Yes, so good morning. Thank you for having me here. My name's Marcia from Black Heritage Walks Network. So I'll keep it brief in terms of my little bio. Basically, about 8 years ago, myself and about 2 other history teachers, we sat and we looked and we thought Birmingham is not presenting its heritage as it should be. It's black history, Asian history, Irish, the Greek history, the South Asian histories, and those alternative histories, LGBT, disability, feminist rights. So we basically got together and thought, right, how do we do this? Let's create a platform where we can take you to the places where these things happen. So this whole thing of space and land is quite appropriate, because that's what we do. We take you to that land and that object, that statue, and we then give you the very short narrative, but it's a balanced narrative of how everybody, so we've made it balanced, has created that tapestry of Birmingham. And we've done that by a series of, we've got about 20 walks in Birmingham where we present the alternative histories. We're now in a process where we are not just claiming the actual space, but those heritage buildings. Okay, so first question. Is anyone here from Birmingham City Council? That's okay. So,
just to say, it is being recorded, so it take time, yeah.
That's okay.
Off record, we can talk all the things out there.
And so what you've got is now, because we're broke, as my dad would say, we've got the ability-ish to reclaim what we call our heritage buildings that made us. So, for example, if you were to look around Birmingham, you're really looking in Handsworth. We've got some specific buildings. We've got FCF. Who went to FCF? You put down your foot. You've got the Marcus Garvey House. They've knocked down the Beehive Centre. What we've got left are, we've got Thornhill Police Station. We've also got Handsworth Leisure Centre, I believe Oaklands, and others. Those asset buildings, we as the black community really should be creating what I call an army to grab them, because they are ours. They created us. These buildings enabled us to create what I call ground roots here. And they tell our history. Right. It's not as easy as you think. The amount of barriers, red tape, consultations. And we've got a situation where we have a council that doesn't want or can't cope with these buildings. We in the community possibly could and would, but we also will also have to take on the very big challenge of knowing when we take them on, we're going to have to ensure that there's continual marketing, continual footfall to pay the electric bill, the gas bill, the everything bill. That's just that issue alone. Then you've got to keep on, how can I put this, creating that momentum of people coming in, cultural events, workshops, etc. And what we've actually said is we can do this, but we still need that little bit of help from other community public services. So what we've said is, why can't universities come in and use our buildings? That will help us in terms of bringing in the money. Colleges, schools, the NHS, all of your other public services that you could ever think of, food bank, supermarkets. A supermarket could create a little space in here, or any other building, for example. That's what we need. So we need to take our spaces. So what you're doing, what you're saying is phenomenal. You couldn't, 200%. And when we do take on the building, absolutely brilliant achievement. But what I would call the possible struggle is being able to maintain the overhead costs. We're not even talking making a profit. We get profit. So what is also needed and what needs to be explained to, I don't know, the asset transfer department, the council, you can't just let go of us like this. We will still need immediate help from others to use our space. So that's where we are. It's what we call a transition situation that we're in, because we've never had this, how can I put it, opportunity of being able to get hold of these buildings. But there's also the reality of, now you've got this building, can all of you still help us just a little bit? So that's where I'm from with this. Yes, yeah. So do I hand to you now, or yeah?
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Connie Bell. I am from Decolonising the Archive. We're based in London. And the work we do is around archives and bridging the gap between the community, the African heritage community, and those lost narratives. The reason we developed that whole strategy is because we realized there was a dearth in understanding the power of narrative and understanding the power of archives. And unfortunately, due to the colonial interlude, we've always archived as African heritage people, we've had to kind of renegotiate our ideas around archives, because archives have gone into Eurocentric institutions which represent and remind traumatic experiences. So our job was to develop a strategy and a methodology where we could interface with our community using the very same artifacts and histories, but then transforming those narratives and allowing the community to reclaim the narrative and to build upon those narratives. And so we call it the Pan-African Archive as well. So that's what we do. In regards to this amazing question that we're all sharing here today, I've got so much to say, but I'm going to try my best to keep it short. First of all, how do we reimagine culture and a space for us to recover? I think ABUELOS will definitely do that for us, because in so many ways we need to recover. We're not in a situation where we are actually, I can say, profoundly understanding ourselves as a community. And when I say community, it's got many layers. It's not just about the African heritage community, but it's also about how other communities are interfacing with the African heritage community, communicating with our history, communicating and understanding what is happening and continues to happen. And from that context, there is a constant state of recovering. And because of that constant state of recovering, we then need to initiate programs and strategies that actually address just that. The fact that we are constantly in a state of recovering. Now, not many other traditions and cultures are within that kind of paradigm. And so what we have is a very perplexing and interesting challenge for us as a group of people. And so I think it's amazing that, anyway, I don't want to get too overwhelmed here, that you're tackling this, because it has to happen. Another reason why it has to happen is because when we look at land and property in regards to the idea of what empire has done, we have to remember that when you take people's land, you take their identity. Now, in every single case of every other culture that has lived here in Britain, they're all associated to a piece of land. But for us as African heritage people, we're told we're black. What is black? Black is not a piece of land. Can I tell you? All right. It disassociates the group of people from the land mass which claims and recovers and identifies them. That is a problem. And so I steer away many times from using the word black. Sorry, I'm getting all heated now. I'm starting to get loud in here, it's too echoey. Because we now have to go into the recovery of our Africanity, our African identity. And it will take different types of representations, because we're not just one kind, we are a plural identity. But at the same time, if we are to recover it within the aspect of the landmass in which it is associated with, that is a piece of work. Last thing to say, in regards to answering the question, how do we transform it from private to communal? It is going to take you, the community, to do that. I am daring both yourself, but also whoever is going to be listening here today and listening online. It is you that has to do it. Our governments have failed us, and so has the council. So therefore, looking to council for help is almost like insane, because they are never, they've proven it to you. The archives are there, if you don't believe me. Go and look at the archives over the years. They are not built structurally or physically to bring in the changes that we need, because that would take for the very people who are being embedded and signing up to change their way of thinking. That means they have to unschool themselves. All right, now. So ABUELOS brings us that opportunity to address those challenges. Thank you.
My gosh, sisters, that was amazing. I should have gone first than you. I'm also not used to being simultaneously signed. It's wonderful, isn't it? Kind of distracting. I'm kind of thinking, oh, the sign. I love
keep
languages.
throwing things on them as well, like, oh, how do you sign this?
Yes, it's wonderful.
I already told them I was going to play them up this morning.
I feel like just saying a random word to just see how it sounds. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much to MAIA for inviting me this Saturday morning. Before I left the house, my husband was like, I thought you weren't doing Saturday morning things anymore. You said that you were going to set boundaries. And I said, I am going to set boundaries, but I can't not do MAIA, because this woman is doing amazing things, and I can't not be part of this. So we had to kind of like, had to just deal with it this morning as I left the house. So this idea of land and spatial justice and reparations. So I'm a professor of post-colonial geography at the University of Birmingham, and it feels to me centrally that that's what geography should be doing. It's not what geography does, to be fair, but it feels to me centrally as if that's what geography should be doing. So geography as a discipline and fully accepts this of itself, but doesn't know how to get out of it. Geography as a discipline, it has its roots firmly within colonialism and is aware of that and doesn't know how to dislodge itself. So lots of people are always telling me, oh yeah, we really need to decolonize the discipline. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, and so I'm kind of like, well, what are you gonna do to actually do this? And they're like, well, we'll do anything you want to do. So, as you know, that's not gonna work. I'm just one person in geography. So I'm doing what I want to do within geography and outside of geography, and then geography will do what it does. But I always want to tell black audiences about geography, because we don't have a lot of black people in geography, and that is geography's fault. It's not our fault, it's geography's fault. The way that it's designed as a discipline, the way that it excludes us at school. So it introduces itself and kind of says, not for you at the same time. And the curriculum is a problem. And I'm talking with a lot of geography teachers who are very aware of this. It's a very active group called Decolonising Geography. I had to turn the sound off on the WhatsApp because it was constantly ping, 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 because they've got ideas of how the curriculum should change. They want to change their own practice. They're doing things on the lowdown, but they're constantly being challenged and checked by their departments. It's very, very difficult to make change in schools with the national curriculum the way that it is. We have a lot more freedom in higher education, so we do what we can and we try and help. So I'll just kind of run down, because I'm really interested in the land, spatial justice and reparations and the whole CHOGM thing that's running just now, the Commonwealth heads of government. Wonderful. They just kind of, because it was them, that made the Windrush scandal blow up, because they asked very pertinent questions at just the right moment when the British government were relating to them. The Commonwealth heads of government said, well, what's this thing with Windrush? And it went from that. So this time they're using that power around reparations. And of course there's been a lot of hurricanes and various things. Climate change has kicked right in terms of the Caribbean in particular. And so some of the wonderful heads of government that they do have at the moment, they don't always have wonderful heads of government, but at the moment they do have MAIA Motley, for example, who is a dynamo. And she's been talking about reparations for a while, and of course that's spread to all the other islands. And now at the Commonwealth heads of government, they're talking about reparations, despite the fact that our government was very keen for them not to talk about reparations and for it not to be in the document at the end of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, but apparently Keir Starmer has failed to keep it out. That was the headline this morning, quite an interesting post-colonial headline, that Starmer has failed to keep it out of the document. So reparations is on its way moving, despite our government's refusal to accept it and to talk about it as if it's a past thing, when actually it's really very much a future thing, because without the reparations they can't pay for all the things that they need to pay for because of climate change, right? So in order to equip themselves for the future, to have early warnings, mechanisms in place, for example, for hurricanes, moving people out of danger areas, ready for sea level rise that is going to be catastrophic for a lot of islands. They need the money now. And that's not about the past. That's about the future. But because of the past, they're not able to equip themselves for the future. So this is really important, not just for the Caribbean, not even just for the Pacific, but for all of the world. And if we don't get islands sorted out, remember, we live on an island, right? If we don't get islands sorted out, we're done for. So this seems really important to me, and it's very much linked with spatial justice. I'll finish in a second. But I just want to run through. So my specialisms are post-colonial geography. So that's about the legacy of the past and how it affects how we live now. So that was a move for me from thinking about development geography, which development is all about this sense that there's this linear path from the traditional to the modern, and many, 2/3 of the countries of the world are just behind